2, 1.
Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast, part of Full Press Radio. This is July the 28th, Free Agency Day. With you today is myself, Carl, and Stevie Nick.
And what a day for the NHL at the end of July. Oh, there's a lot today. There's a lot to unpack.
It did feel a little bit weird having Free Agency Day not on Canada Day.
I agree. It did feel weird.
Yep.
But man, like this shortened off season, like, do you think it's so busy because it's shorter?
Absolutely.
Like, this stuff normally takes like weeks and months to get all of this happening. And it all just happened here in the last 2 weeks.
Do you remember every previous offseason, even last year, had a little bit of this where like restricted free agents just didn't sign ever?
Yeah.
And we were there and we were like, when's the shoe going to drop? And we're going to figure this out. And yet we got restricted guys signing. We've got all of this going on. So very busy week. Let's start. We're going to kind of break the show up into three parts. We're going to talk about some deals that happened this week. We're going to obviously talk about the free agents that were signed this week. We're going to go back to the things that happened in the draft after we hung up. We were doing our live show. Ton of fun. Thanks again to everyone that joined us there. But I mean, it's nice to see Nick's face again.
Yeah. Oh, it's much easier to, read each other when we can actually see each other. There's no audio delay.
You can tell when I'm actually upset.
Yes. Which I think we'll get into this week with the news that we have to cover.
You know what? Who knows? Who knows what'll happen? But thank you. That big things that happened when we left, though. Two big things. One, we kept waiting for Wallstedt to get picked, and we waited and we waited, and then the Wings made their trade. Are you still happy with that trade?
Yeah, I'm happy with that trade. I mean, I'm still surprised Wallstedt wasn't the first goalie to go. But look, I was wearing my Believe in the Yzer Plan t-shirt, and I stand by that.
Well, and so eventually Wallstedt did get picked, going all the way until the 20th pick, being picked by the Minnesota Wild, who traded up to take him from the Oilers' original spot, which I thought we talked about the fact that the Oilers were a team that should have been looking for him and chose to move back 2 spots, getting a 3rd round pick. Great pick for the Wild, but why didn't Edmonton just make the pick?
I don't know. It's funny because we were even talking about it in our chat Friday night about how if he falls to Edmonton, they have to take him, right? Like, Edmonton needs that pick. So I don't understand what look, Ken Holland's had an off season.
He's been busy.
He's been busy in probably the worst way.
Yes.
Even with Detroit, I don't know if, like, obviously I'm way less emotionally involved in his decisions right now. Like, I don't care as much. If this was happening in Detroit, I'd probably be losing it.
Yeah, it's not, that especially, right? When you've got a great player that slipped in the draft and sitting there.
Who was supposed to go top 10? Like, they thought he was going to go top 10.
Yeah. But so that happened. And then that was not the worst thing that happened that night, though.
Oh, no, it wasn't. I fell asleep and I woke up at 7 a.m. the next day to a text message that just said, I can't believe that just happened. And I went, oh no, what did I miss in this draft? So I opened my Twitter, which I don't normally do while I'm still in bed, but I did it on that Saturday. And I saw that the Montreal Canadiens, with the 31st overall picked, drafted Logan. What's his name?
We don't even need to figure out how to say his name. Logan Malloy?
Something like that.
Sure.
Yeah. So this is this is a guy who's knee deep in some sexual assault allegations with his junior team. And he put out a statement saying, please do not trade me. I'm going to take a year to figure this all out.
Yeah.
Do not draft me. I said trade. I meant draft.
Yep.
And Marc Bergevin and the Montreal Canadiens decided to go and draft him.
And this is Marc Bergevin, who is a part of the Chicago Blackhawks front office during the 2010 Stanley Cup run, which is now recently known more for the sexual assault allegations stemming from that with the video coach and all of those things. Marc Bergevin said that he was not aware of the things that were happening with the Chicago Blackhawks, which seems hard to believe because the entire player, like the roster, all knew about what was happening, and he did not know about that. And then he comes to Montreal and is part of making this choice over here. I have zero time for Marc Bergevin right now.
Yeah, this is a really bad look for him. I really don't believe any of these guys who say we had no idea. This just all, to me, screams like lawyers saying, never admit to anything. Don't say you knew anything. Just no comment through this whole thing. I just didn't believe it. And this pick kind of solidifies it for me that this guy is just not a good guy. Not good.
No. And today they came out and Jeff Molson, team president, came and said that they will not be inviting him to rookie camp or training camp. And they'll be working with him to progress. And I appreciate that. However, shouldn't have happened, Montreal.
I appreciate it. I mean, they obviously saw the outrage for what they did and maybe underestimated how bad that would be. But the language that he used in that press conference, a lot of it came down to, we saw a very, very talented hockey player who in the long run could be a huge benefit to our team on the ice. So we'll put up with this short-term pain for the long-term gain. And it just doesn't sit well with me. Like, just from a being a decent person perspective, like, it felt so much like a hockey decision when everything around this kid is like, hockey needs to be put to the back of his mind and he needs to kind of reassess, how he's treating people. I don't know. It just doesn't sit well with me.
No, absolutely not. So I think, Montreal's now taking a big look at how they do things, and hopefully they figure out that they're not doing it right, because you got to have surround your organization with better people than they're doing, and need some work on that. So,
yeah.
Was there a big winner that stood out to you from the draft?
I thought Columbus did pretty well for themselves. This is going to sound like a homer pick, but I honestly think Detroit did well for themselves.
I agree. No, I don't think that's a homer pick at all.
In that first round, those would be the two to me that I think did really well. I think Buffalo did well too, but how many times can you say that about the Buffalo Sabres in the NHL draft?
Yeah, they picked high, they picked often. It's hard to go wrong there. The Senators, I would say, would be a big loser in the draft. The Tyler Boucher pick, still baffling, still confusing for me there. That would be one that I'd look at as a loser in that situation. Yeah,
not quite sure what they were thinking with that one. And this is coming from, I am actually not a huge Pierre Dorion detractor. I think he's done a pretty good job building this team from where it was to where it's at. So I don't know. I didn't really love that pick from Pierre Dorion.
No. And so there you go. On to the trades. We've had some deals happening between the draft and now. One happened at the draft, a 1-for-1 trade, kind of reuniting one guy with a team that he's been with. Jake Voracek on his way from the Philadelphia Flyers back to the Columbus Blue Jackets for Cam Atkinson.
Yeah, I didn't really get this deal for the Blue Jackets. I don't know why, Atkinson was a huge producer for them. And Voracek's kind of been just meh over the last few years. So I'm not quite sure what their thinking is there.
I mean, for me, when I look at this deal, I look at it and you've got Voracek, who has that much higher ceiling than Atkinson does for me, right? But we've seen so many times in Philadelphia his production fluctuate. And for a Columbus team that is full rebuild right now, I get this for them, right? They're going to hope for a very good bounce back Voracek season, flip him again, and get that higher value that they could get for him. Atkinson kind of is what he is. He's a declining player that puts up consistent okay value.
But I disagree with that. I don't like Voracek is a better player, sure. Not by much over the last few years, in my opinion. Like, I think Atkinson's hit his ceiling, but I think Voracek's hit his too, and I think he's on the downside. Like, he's not. I don't know, how good does this Columbus team think they're going to be? Voracek's not going to, take them to the playoffs.
No, not by any means. And I don't think that's their goal. I think their goal is to amass the most pieces that can lead to flexibility. Voracek is making more money than Atkinson by a fair amount, almost $3 million, a bit of a shorter deal. So this gives them that flexibility that as they're getting out of this, 4 years from now, Cam Atkinson is not going to be a piece that either of these teams are really excited to have around. So Columbus's plan is that by the time that they're at that point, they don't need him. And this gave Philadelphia, who made a ton of moves this week just to work cap space, this cleared some money for them.
Yeah, that's a good point. I see these players as being pretty equal. Voracek's a little better, but you're right. From a cap flexibility perspective, Columbus comes out ahead here.
Yeah.
And now Philadelphia, that's one team that's not on our list of topics today, but they made some moves this week too.
They were very busy this week.
Yeah. And there's some stuff that was, some of it was good. I really like the Ryan Ellis deal for them. But then there was some stuff after, we talked about it last week, the Ristolainen deal. They made some moves that I was like, I thought you were going in the right direction, and then you kind of 180'd.
And they have half of their blue line is new. And I really only like one of the pickups. $900,000 for Keith Yandel. Amazing. Right? But
agreed.
Martin Jones to back up Carter Hart? Maybe? I guess.
If his role is going to be a pure backup, sure, I guess.
If his role is not pure backup, then they have much bigger problems, because that means Carter Hart is not leading this team. And
they need him too.
So and they still need to give him a contract. So an interesting week for the Philadelphia Flyers. The big trade of the week, though, was Marc-Andre Fleury being traded to the Chicago Blackhawks for essentially nothing.
Yeah, shocking, right? Did anybody have a lead on this? Was this expected at all?
There was some talk that he could be on the move, but certainly not for this return. It came by very quickly.
Marc-Andre Fleury was just a Vezina. No, he won the Vezina trophy.
Number one
just
Vezina
won
winner.
The Vezina trophy.
We had an all-time rant about some guy in Vegas winning it. And they were like, you know what? Look, if Nikita Kucherov doesn't even know your name, you're worthless to us. Get out of here.
Yeah, we just traded what's his name to Chicago.
That's literally what the tweet that they sent out was. What's his name to Chicago for nothing?
And then
Signed
literally
Vegas.
Fleury was reading Twitter and he's like, is that me? Because that's how he found out.
Which, after all of what they've done to him in Vegas with the over dramatic Alan Walsh, DeBoer sword in the back picture. And I think they were done with him.
That is such a brutal way to find out you've been traded. Especially for a guy like Fleury, who was literally the face of their franchise. He led them to deep playoff runs. He won the Vezina Trophy at however old he is, 55 years old.
36 years old.
Okay, 36. Man, old people in hockey are so young.
As someone who keeps creeping closer and closer to the mark where you're like, that guy is old and done. It hurts. It hurts a lot.
It really does. I like, and now it's come out. So let's tell the rest of the story. Okay. So now it's come out that, Fleury's considering his future in hockey.
So he had a 10-team, was it a 10-team no trade list or 10 teams he could be traded to?
That I don't know.
Okay. Either way, he
find that out.
He had a no trade list, right? Like he had some amount of control about where he could be traded to. Chicago was obviously on the list of places he would go to, but he did not want to move. He was very happy having his family in Vegas. And we see the great work that he does in that community in Vegas.
Yeah.
And doesn't want to move, doesn't want to leave. And so now Chicago's left with this scenario where, what do we do with him? If he retires, there will be no real negatives for them. They've given up this AHLer, and that's fine. There's also talk that Pittsburgh might be a location that he would be interested in returning to.
But that's just got to be for I want to retire as a Penguin, right? Like he must be done. I can't imagine the Vegas Golden Knights would just trade him away for this AHLer. I can't imagine the Chicago Blackhawks would be sitting there thinking, ooh, I can't believe we got Marc-Andre Fleury for this AHL player. Wow, we really pulled one over on them. Like, there must be some sort of understanding here around this player that he's probably done. And now Pittsburgh's coming to the conversation so that he can go home, he can retire officially as a Penguin, and that'll be it. That's what I think. So
did Chicago, do you think Chicago knew this before they made the trade for Marc-Andre Fleury?
I do, yeah.
That there was a chance and they were like, look, maybe we can convince him to stay.
Do you think Chicago was like, hey, toss this random name in there, see if they say yes? And then they said yes, and they were like, uh-oh. Like, that doesn't happen.
I think there was certainly conversation, right? Because if this was the case that Vegas is trying to move him, right? They know that it's a chance that he's retiring. I'm not sure that Chicago was entirely aware of just where he was at in this process.
Everyone in hockey was like, really, that return for Marc-Andre Fleury? How could the Chicago Blackhawks not have thought that as well?
They were too busy licking their fingers.
And if they did think that, then I don't know. I think conversations were had. I think the Golden Knights were probably driving the conversation saying, look, he's probably not going to play anymore. Do you want to try and convince him we'll take a lower level contract for it?
The only thing that makes me think that they still believe to some degree that he might play is the fact that Chicago did not go out today and pick up someone in this plentiful goalie market.
Fair point. That's a really good point.
Because almost everyone's gone at this point. So,
yeah. And he has not been traded yet. And he has not announced a retirement yet. So, he's still on payroll with Chicago. Maybe he'll report.
Time will tell. We'll find out very shortly.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah. But certainly,
not very often you see a Vezina caliber goalie like that, a Vezina winning goalie get traded for pennies.
No. And yet, this was the most that Chicago gave up in any trade this week because they made a trade with the Tampa Bay Lightning, acquiring Tyler Johnson and a second-round pick in exchange, sending Brent Seabrook's retired contract back to Tampa.
Yeah, just cap maneuvering, right?
We've seen Arizona pick up retired contracts, guys who are injured, who aren't going to play again, but still want to get paid. They've been doing this for years. So now we see Tampa do it, and everyone loses their mind because they did it with Kucherov this year.
Yeah, I don't know though. Like from Chicago's perspective, what does Tyler Johnson add to this team? Like they're still not a great team, right?
Gives them a good middle six winger. It's better than what Brent Seabrook was bringing you.
Well, yeah, which was nothing.
It got them a second round pick, which will be like a late second, but
that's the real value in this.
It gives them a roster player. Tyler Johnson's not nothing. And I said middle six, probably bottom six.
I would think so, yeah.
I don't know. I think he still has something to contribute to this team.
Time will tell, Carl.
All right. Winnipeg Jets made a couple trades, picking up Brenden Dillon and Nate Schmidt. They finally decided to add some defense to that team.
Yeah. Like, to me, this is just addressing their position of need. I actually like Nate Schmidt on that team. Brenden Dillon, I think they overpaid a little bit. Like, would they pay 2 second-round picks or something?
2 seconds, which, like,
it's a lot.
Seattle literally passed him up in the expansion draft and then have traded back the guy that they picked from Vegas or from Washington back to him for 1 second. So they they dropped the ball there. It's a very glaring second round pick that they could have had that they don't now.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's both of these players are good pickups for Winnipeg, in my opinion. It makes the team better.
Yeah. Well, and that definitely, right? They needed that hole. They fixed it and they gave up a fair chunk, but you need to, right? You need to have some defense there.
Well, they're still competitive too, right? So
it's also that extending of the window.
Yes.
And this is that, right?
Absolutely.
They're not ready. They brought back Paul Stastny on a cheap deal. It's fine.
Yeah.
All right. Let's us take a break right here. It's a little early for a break, but that's because we have so much free agent talk on the other side. We'll be back talking everyone who was signed. Everyone. Three, 2, 1.
And we're back. We're done with the trade talk. Almost. There's a few other trades we'll talk about. But we're going to focus on free agents now.
135 contracts have been signed this year. We have about 40 minutes left in the show, which gives us about 20 seconds per signing that has happened during free agency. Are you ready?
Yes. Hold on. Is that true? 135 contracts were signed today?
135 contracts have been signed. According to Cap Friendly, 135 contracts, 259 years of contracts, and the dollar amount, $742 million.
That is crazy. So 135 contracts. There's now 32 teams in the league. That's on average 4.2 contracts per team.
That's a lot. Yeah, that makes sense.
That's a lot of contracts. I know it makes sense. It's math.
Well, like with what we've seen today, does this seem like the free agency day of a flat cap scenario?
No, it doesn't. Does it?
It seems like a normal free agency.
It seems like a free agency day that the sports networks drool over every year, but never get.
I will actually, I'll step that back a second, because I do think when I think back to like other years, there was really no like cripplingly bad deals that were handed out today. I don't think.
Today? Not really cripplingly bad. There were some bad ones, but yeah, fair.
Do you think that there was a cripplingly bad one handed out like this week?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Because like I think back to like there's a deal like Louis Eriksson and Milan Lucic, when they sign those and you look at them and you're like, that is an awful deal. Why would you do that? There's none that are like that level of bad, for me at least.
There's none that are that level of bad. I agree with that.
Okay. Well, let's get to some of them. Where do we even start?
Oh man. I don't know where to start. Let's start with the big one. I got one. Okay. Not a surprising one. So we'll ease into this. Alex Ovechkin extended with the Washington Capitals.
Yeah.
He extended for
5 more years.
5 years at 9.5 mil per.
Yep.
That's a big deal.
That's a big dollar amount. That's going to take him until he's 41. You're going to be paying 41-year-old Alex Ovechkin $9.5 million. And every single dollar of that will be worth it if he breaks Gretzky's record for the Washington Capitals.
I honestly, like, we talked about cripplingly bad deals. Like, a deal like this for someone his age falls into that territory, but it's Alex Ovechkin. I have no issue with this deal. I think, like, he's probably the only forward in the National Hockey League who will be able to play up to that caliber until he's 40.
Yeah, I don't doubt that he would. Like, if anyone would, it's him. He's continued this pace. He doesn't seem to be slowing down. 5 more years is it's a lot. And the 41-year might not be great, but they'll be able to celebrate him. They'll have all the focus on them. They'll be selling out games. They'll be selling merch. They will find ways to make this Alexander Ovechkin contract worth it for them.
Yeah, you definitely can't let him leave. This, I think, was also the most surprising deal over the last week for me, because I really expected Ovechkin to do the 1-year extension for the next 5 years. 1 year, a declining cap hit every single year, because I think it's well known he wants to go and play a year or two in Russia before he really checks out. So I thought he would want that flexibility to go, whenever he wants over the next 5 years. But I guess he feels that when he's 41 or 42 or 43, he could still have those couple of years in the KHL playing for his hometown.
Absolutely. We just got some news in.
We got breaking news. We just went through this on the break.
We just had our break and we just checked. And I'm not happy.
Oh boy. Qu'est-ce qui se passe, Carl?
The Colorado Avalanche have acquired goaltender Darcy Kemper from the Arizona Coyotes.
Okay.
For defenseman Connor Timmins and a first-round draft pick.
A first-round pick for Darcy Kemper. I mean, acquiring Kemper is not a huge surprise. He's definitely a target, I think. Before I say what my feelings are, how do you feel about this?
It's way too much for Kemper.
It's an overpayment, right?
It's such an overpayment. We have seen goalie after goalie and trade after trade of guys just being given away all week. And Connor Timmins is not a top prospect by any means at this point. There was times where I was excited about him. There's still potential that becomes an NHLer. A first-round pick, though, nothing this week was traded for a first-round pick. Not a single piece was moved for that. And yes, you have missed out on a lot of pieces in free agency, and this is the only thing that was left. But who else are the Coyotes going to trade Kemper to? There's no one else out there trying to trade for him.
Well, I don't know if that's true. There's still a few teams who have goaltending needs. But
a lot of them fixed them already. And no one else is going to be paying. I mean, could you not have got it done for a second? Obviously not. I'm sure he offered and they said no.
Maybe he was like, hey, how about that AHLer that Chicago traded? I'll get him and trade him to you.
So, right. I mean, Marc-Andre Fleury was literally traded for nothing this week. And we just gave a first round pick and a prospect for Darcy Kemper.
Desperation, right?
I'm not.
Like when Grubauer left, I'm sure the Avs were in on Grubauer till the very last minute. And when they lost him, it must have felt like the floor was falling out from beneath them. Like that's a huge piece of the team.
Here's the thing. Okay. So Grubauer, and let's just get into our goalie segment right now.
Okay,
we were going to get into it. And now I'm upset. And we're talking about it.
Great.
Philip Grubauer signed for 6 years, 5.9 per year in Seattle. Okay. I would have much rather paid. I mean, we're paying Darcy Kemper 4.5 for this season. And then he's gone. And we have to do this exact same thing again next year. I would have much rather paid, and this was something that was easily done for the Avalanche. I would have much rather them have just paid the extra $1.5 million to keep Grubauer here, save the first round pick, and not have to worry about this next year. Sure, 6 years is a long time for a goalie, but for this year and next year, and probably the year after, I'm very okay paying Grubauer $6 million and not giving up a first round pick.
I mean, it takes you through the window, right? Like
it takes us right. Grubauer is a good quality goalie through the Nate McKinnon makes cheap money window.
Yeah. And it's worth it if you have to overpay him for the last 2 years of that deal.
And we're doing this. We saved $1.5 million. What are we spending $1.5 million on, Joe? It's idiotic.
So, Carl, would you rather have Joe Sakic as your GM or Steve Yzerman as your GM?
Not now, Nick. Not now.
That's a bad deal. That's a bad trade for the Avs. In Joe's defense, he doesn't make many of them.
And there was nothing, right? I'm sure he was calling every goaltender's agent all day trying to bring someone in. And I'd rather this than paying Linus Ullmark $5 million for the next 4 years like the Boston Bruins are. Like there's other bad goaltender deals that were out there today. This isn't great.
I mean, I guess this means that Tuukka Rask isn't considering going anywhere else. He doesn't have a deal.
He does not have a deal yet.
Would you rather Darcy Kemper or would you rather, what's his name from Edmonton? Koskinen?
I mean, Abato Koskinen splitting the net with Branceau. I wouldn't have had to give up a pick for him. And yet, I mean, you've got to use your draft capital. This hopefully is going to be a late pick, but I mean, we're hemorrhaging talent from this team right now.
Come on, Carl. This is going to be a late round pick. You're being dramatic, hemorrhaging talent. You just lost your goalie.
We just lost our Vezina finalist goalie. We lost Brandon Saad. We lost Pierre-Edouard Bellemare. We lost who else? There was someone else we lost this week.
How many points did all those guys combine for?
We lost Jonas Donskoy in the expansion draft. It all adds up.
The Avs are going to be fine. They're going to be fine. Do you want to go to more positive news for the Avs? Because they got Makar done. They got Landeskog done.
And I'm fine with, the Makar deal, I would have liked it to be a little bit longer, would have liked the 8 years on Makar. This kind of gets him right to free agency, which I want him to be an Av as long as humanly possible. And the dollar amount for him is fantastic. I just forgetting the exact, I'm rattled right now.
I think Makar was $9 million.
Makar was 9, so 9 for 6.
9.5. Yeah.
Right. I should have remembered that number. 6 for 9. And Landeskog got 8 years for $7 million. And that I'm very okay with.
Yeah, these are bad deals.
No, I just would have really enjoyed Grubauer. I can't believe that we're saving $1 million. What are you going to do with that $1.5 million? Like, actually, we're sitting here right now with Kemper on the books. We have still like almost $8 million left, and all we have to do is sign Tyson Jost. So that's going to be like $3 million.
Don't you have to backfill the other guys you just talked about, Bellemare and
Bellemar's like $1 million replacement. Those other two guys will be like 2 or 3.
Okay, well, that's where you put that extra $1 million into. Go backfill. Go get Joe Thornton.
I don't.
Used to be the best passer in the game.
Joe Thornton would be. We could fit Joe Thornton in anyways.
Yeah, I know. He'd actually be good on that team. That would be. I'd be okay with that. That'd be a fun one.
Okay. Well,
who else? What other vets are out there who are hunting for a cup?
I'm not even like. We don't even need to bring them up. We'll just bring up like we got Alex Newhook. He can join this lineup. Shane Bowers deserves a shot this year, so get them in there.
No.
Yes.
No, don't bring exciting new fun players in. Bring the old. Do the Maple Leafs Bring the old vets in and try to win a cup for them.
No, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we need to fill 2 more spots on our starting roster. And they are like bottom, they can be mid to bottom 6 guys. Those are everywhere.
Absolutely. You'll be fine. I agree it was an overpayment for the goalie. I agree with you there.
Anyways, some other goalies signed contracts this week.
Oh, some other goalies. This is just like last year. This year is going to be every game I watch going to be like, oh, that goalie plays for that team.
Right.
That it's like that game where they're like, okay, everyone look to your right and move 1 seat to your right.
Yes. I don't think it's as blatant of a like literal musical chairs as last year. But we do have, so Carolina Hurricanes are still going with their goalie tandem scenario that they've been going with for the last number of years, having Antti Ranta and Freddie Anderson as their tandem. And I like that better than Voracek Reimer.
100%. I don't know. Do you like it better than Voracek and Nedeljkovic?
Yes.
They shouldn't have given up Nedeljkovic is my point.
No, they should not have. That is now I was going to say, no, that's clearly the worst goalie trade of the week. Still.
Yes. Agreed.
It's the opposite of this Colorado deal.
So Anderson signs in Carolina. Mrazek signs in Toronto.
So they just swapped seats.
They swapped seats.
Yeah.
We had Holtby, who was bought out of Vancouver.
Yep.
Signed in Dallas.
It looks like he's going to be, they do not have any idea. It sounds like Ben Bishop might not play this year, and that seems likely then that he might not play ever again.
Okay.
So Holtby is going to get significant time in Dallas.
Okay.
Which then led to Yaroslav Halak going to Vancouver.
Brian Elliott went to Tampa.
Which, unreal that they can fit a Brian Elliott in there. I mean, like, not that he's anything great, but as a pure backup.
It's a solid backup, for sure.
Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which then led to Martin Jones replacing him in
Philadelphia. Yes, that's right. And James Reimer going to San Jose.
Right. So I think that closes up the entire circle. And then we had Linus Ullmark. No one went to Buffalo, so there's no Ullmark chain there.
Yeah.
He's in Boston.
So Buffalo's another team that needs to go out find a goalie because Carter Hutton's also gone somewhere else. I think he's on the West Coast too.
Carter Hutton is in Arizona, which is what led them to, for some reason, making Darcy Kemper available.
Okay, we're going to have to pull the last 60 seconds of audio out of this episode just so that I can save it on my desktop so I can remember where all of these goalies are.
We don't usually, but we will pay for transcription services for this episode just for you.
Worth it. It's worth it.
You know what? That's way easier than me just screen grabbing this cap friendly page that I have pulled up right now. So.
Yeah, it costs money.
Yeah.
So do any of these goalie deals stand out to you? Is anything worth talking about? Maybe the Carolina Toronto stuff?
Yeah, I think I like the Carolina improvements. I like Mrazek too, though. So I think in Toronto with him and Jack Campbell, that should be fine. Freddie was not helpful last year. It's 2 big question marks in Carolina. If Freddie's healthy and if Ranta's healthy, which is something we always say, they just have to hope that one of the 2 of them is ready to go.
Yeah, which is with these 2 players a pretty risky bet, I think. And like Carolina, we got to talk about Carolina as a team in general, because they've had some turnover in front of the goalie as well. That makes me less confident in this goalie tandem.
Well, let's talk about it then. The big piece is Dougie Hamilton off to New Jersey, getting a 7-year contract for $9 million. Great pickup for New Jersey.
I think so too. I just thought the whole thing was worth it for Dougie Hamilton.
Yeah, he got paid. He's going to an up-and-coming team.
New Jersey is going to be good. I mean, I said that last year too.
Yeah.
But they should be good.
They should be. They will be better.
So Carolina loses Hamilton. They traded Jake Bean, I believe.
They traded Jake Bean at the draft.
So, like, their decor is still pretty good with Pesci and Shea and who else I got, Carl?
Brett Gardner, Jacob Slavin's the best one there now.
Slavin, yeah, that's the one I was missing.
Today they made the trade, picking up Ethan Bear from the Oilers. Good trade for them. Giving up Warren Fogle there. And
good trade for both teams, I think.
Yeah, and signed Ian Cole. Like, their defense is still good. They just lost their best defender, and that's a problem.
That's a problem. And, you know, Freddie Anderson's coming from a Leafs team that wasn't the strongest defensively. So he should perform better on this Carolina Hurricanes team. I have a little more confidence there.
Yep. And they play a very good system base in Carolina. So I think he'll work well there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And unless I'm missing something, I don't think anything super big up front for the Hurricanes this week.
Nothing super big up front. They did go and pick up D'Angelo for some reason.
Yeah, that falls into the Chicago Blackhawks, Montreal Canadiens category of poor choices.
Yeah, absolutely. It does.
They do still have Andrei Svechnikov sitting there, and I know his brother is no longer with the Red Wings. Is that correct?
Yeah, Detroit did not qualify him. They offered him a 2-way deal, actually, because he's going to hit free agent. He's a UFA now, and his agent said he was going to see what's out there on the market. I kind of think he'll just end up back in Detroit on a 2-way deal.
So you could, I know Red Wings fans are very much wanting an Elias Pettersson offer sheet, but you could get a Svechnikov offer sheet.
I would take both.
Really?
Either or works for me. I kind of feel like the Pettersson one is more, I don't know, A, realistic, and B, just worth it more.
Yeah, that makes sense. I am going to modify my stance slightly on the Darcy Kemper trade. Okay. Arizona is retaining $1 million of salary. So now Colorado has saved $2.5 million by not signing Grubauer.
So not as bad as initially thought.
It's now slightly better.
Okay.
I still don't like it though.
It's a big overpayment for the player that Kemper is.
Correct. All right. Let's get to Seattle picking up Philip Grubauer, the aforementioned 6 by 5.9 deal. They also picked up Jaden Schwartz in Seattle, finally doing something with all that cap space that they got from the expansion draft.
Yeah, I mean, both of these pickups make them a more exciting team than when we talked about it on Friday. I was pretty lukewarm on their roster on Friday, but, you know, after seeing them get Grubauer, after seeing them get Schwartz, I'm starting to think, okay, this team could be exciting after all.
Yeah, I think they'll be competitive for sure. They got better. I don't know if they'll be exciting.
They're still missing that like big name franchise player, big goal scorer, like a Tarasenko maybe.
But or like a cornerstone goal. Could you imagine? I mean, I get now why they didn't go and pick up Carey Price. They got Philip Grubauer for $4 million less for the exact same amount of time.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Do you like the Grubauer deal? Like, we kind of talked about it, but
I think that's what you need to pay to get a goalie. It's better than the Jacob Markstrom trade deal that was signed by the Flames just last year. It's less money, and I think he's a better goalie. So, yes.
How does this make Chris Driedger feel after being paraded out in the Seattle jersey as their goalie last week?
I think he's always shone best as the second fiddle. This is what he knows, and he's going to try to do it again.
That's probably going to be the most interesting thing in Seattle this year, right? Is which of these goalies takes the reins?
Oh, well, I think at this point with Grubauer coming in, that's the one. You give him the net and give it to him until he gets hurt.
You almost sounded hopeful there, Carl.
I would never wish an injury upon someone.
I know you wouldn't. I know. So they've got what, like 9 to 10 million locked up in their goalies?
Yeah, just about 10 million locked up in those two, which is as much as you would want to have locked up in two goalies.
Yeah, it's actually not that bad.
No, and still have, as of right now, it's actually 9.4 in goalies. As of right now, they still have $16 million in cap space, but they do need to give, really just the one RFA needs a big deal. Vince Dunn will probably get a sizable contract there. The other 3 restricted free agents they have won't. So, probably at least, 10 to $12 million left, probably 10 after all the RFAs are done. So they've got at least 2 big name pieces they could sign.
They should go get Jack Eichel.
Just trade all of their picks for the next while and just know that they'll be low.
They just picked up another second rounder, trading Voracek back to Washington.
It's true. They're stockpiling.
They're like, we don't need you anymore. We got our goalies.
Yeah, and then they've got 2 second rounders now and a couple fourths. So interesting.
Okay, we got a few more free agents to talk about. I have no idea how we're doing on time.
I don't fully. Everyone will look and be like, "This is how long you've been going for." I'm gonna guess we've been going. I think we got about 15 minutes left.
Okay, let's talk about the Edmonton Oilers.
Let's talk about them.
Zach Hyman, Tyson Barrie, extended today. They picked up Warren Fogle from Carolina, as we said, for Ethan Bear. How do you feel Ken Holland did today?
They bought out James Neal.
They
lost a couple other guys. I think Kara went to the Blackhawks. I look at this team. You forgot Cody Ceci is now an Edmonton Oiler.
Oh, did they pick him up? They did. Oh, that's a long time. Cody Ceci.
Oh, they did. Yes, they did. This team is better now than they were yesterday.
Okay. I agree.
But there was some deals done today that I don't think are good.
Like which?
4 years at 3.25 for Cody Ceci is not a good deal.
It's a long time. That's a lot of Cody Ceci in Edmonton.
That's a lot of Cody Ceci. Tyson Barrie's deal, I like that one. 3 times 4.5.
I agree. And I thought he was good for them last year.
And did he not lead the league in defensive points?
That I don't know. I'm sure we could find that out very quickly.
I'm fairly certain that was the case, which is like in the same way that Leon Draisaitl won an MVP. Yeah, of course you're going to when you're on the same power play as Connor McDavid. That's going to happen. So doesn't surprise me that Tyson Barrie is that, but that's good.
But he was the kind of defenseman they needed on their power play, right? You're right. He did lead the league in points, defensive points, 48 points last year.
Yeah.
Trailed by Adam Fox with 47, the Norris Trophy winner.
That's pretty good. So getting him locked up long-term is great. And, you got someone who wants to be in Edmonton. So fantastic. Zach Hyman. It's a lot of money for a very long time.
It's going to be reasonable for the next 3 years, I think. But after that, it's going to be painful. And this is going to be a hard one for them to move.
Well, where do you so when you look at this roster, where do you see him? Is he a Connor McDavid winger? Is he on the second line? Like, where is he slotting in?
He's definitely top 6, but I think you put him on that Connor McDavid line for sure. Because he's willing to go, you had him on the Austin Matthews line. That's the equivalent.
Right.
Like he's willing to go to those dirty areas of the ice, collect the puck, and give it to the star players. Like he's willing to work his butt off to get the puck.
And did well at that in Toronto.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Is that worth this deal that he got? Like, is finding someone who can make your star players look great worth $38.5 million or whatever this ended up being?
If it makes your star players comfortable and it gives them confidence that when they're on the ice, they know they're going to get the puck and they don't feel like they have to take on everything, then yes, I think it's worth it.
That is an interesting way to look at it. I mean, that you can take some of that pressure off of Connor McDavid, that he does not have to be the guy, that there's someone else that will do a part of that job on the ice. I do think that has incredible value. I just don't think it's as much as what they paid today. Again,
I think for the next 3 years, Zach Hyman's going to be great. I don't, this kind of role player, they don't age that well. So the back half of this contract, I kind of worry about. But like, I don't know. We all sit here and we can criticize Ken Holland's moves, and it's all justified. But if this team makes it to the conference finals next year, is the Zach Hyman deal worth it?
Yes, but a team with Mikko Koskinen and Mike Smith in net is not making it to the conference finals next year.
Oh, and he did extend Mike Smith for 2 years. See, Ken Holland, even when I'm trying to help you.
Yes, this team, they got better, right? Like this, they improved from what they were, which was last year a playoff team, and they got better. But their biggest hole and their biggest problem didn't get addressed.
Yeah. Not yet, anyways. I mean, they're still out there, apparently still talking and asking and working on stuff. I don't know how much of it I believe. I kind of don't see them fixing that problem this year.
I mean, that Ken Holland always has somebody on the phone doing something. It might not be good, but it's happening.
Yeah, he's like half the time he's talking to the duct cleaning guys.
All right. Some more. Here's one that I find really interesting. Ryan Suter signed with the Dallas Stars $3.65 million for 4 more years. Ryan Suter is 36 years old and was just bought out by the Minnesota Wild. Do you like this for Dallas?
No, that's not an unreasonable cap hit, but that's an unreasonable amount of years for Ryan Suter.
Like an incredibly unreasonable amount.
And it's not even that many. But like you could start regretting this halfway through this year.
This contract might be my favorite stat of the day. Ryan Suter has a cap hit for the Minnesota Wild next year of $6.3 million. After that, 7.3. Huge cap hit penalty for the Wild, right? The Dallas Stars now have him. There was 4 years left on his deal with Minnesota. Here's the interesting thing. So he's going to get that money from Minnesota. But this deal he just signed with Dallas is more real dollars than he would have made on these 4 years in Minnesota.
So crazy.
So Ryan Suter got bought out and then made that money, but also got a $14 million payday, $4 million more than he would have gotten if he had just stayed in Minnesota.
So crazy.
No wonder he said yes to this. Nope.
Yeah.
Like his agent deserves the biggest of raises today.
Yeah. A lot of agents got paid good today.
$724 million was signed today. So the Dallas Stars, though, I mean, they lost Jamie Alexiak in the expansion draft, so they were looking for defensemen. They also wanted to bring someone else in to fill the void of Ben Bishop, who will likely be out. So with them, this fills that spot, and Braden Holtby fills the goalie spot.
You know who Dallas signed, though, that I really like for them? That makes me really sad. They signed Luke Glendening today from the Detroit Red Wings.
You know what? I don't see that on their cap friendly page. So maybe he's in a different spot.
It's a very small contract. It's 2 years, $3 million. So like $1.5 million per year.
I do see him there. Yeah, I see him there.
Luke Glendening First of all, probably one of the best face-off guys in the league, and he's a fourth liner. Like on the Red Wings broadcast, anytime he was on the ice, all he talked about was his face-off percentage. It got to be ridiculous.
I've watched some of those Red Wings broadcasts against my better judgment. That doesn't surprise me.
What do you mean against your better judgment? They're the best broadcast in the league.
No.
Yes, Carl.
No. Okay. I'm not even gonna sit here and tell you that the Avalanche have a great one, because they don't. But the Red Wings one is not great.
It's fantastic. Ken Daniels, this is not on our list of topics, but you brought it up. Let's make that point. Ken Daniels and Mickey Redmond have been together for like 20 years. And as ridiculous as Mickey Redmond is, it's hilarious.
Yeah, just because they've been together a long time doesn't make them good.
Yes,
there's a lot of analogies that we can go through with that. I'm just gonna leave it there.
Great chemistry. They read each other well. When they're not in person, I'm sure they're watching each other on video so they can pick up on each other's cues.
What pros? Here's what I will say. I discovered during this playoff, you know who might be the worst? And it's not a TV crew. And I know a lot of, I don't know all the radio crews, but I was listening at one point in the playoffs to Tampa's radio broadcast, which for some reason features Phil Esposito.
Yeah, I listened to it too.
And it's unlistenable. It is an awful broadcast. They won the Stanley Cup, so I don't feel too bad for the people in Tampa, but they deserve better than Phil Esposito. What he's bringing to that, my goodness.
I totally agree. It's pretty bad. Although most radio broadcasts are pretty bad at this point.
They are. They're going more. They should really just be broadcasting the TV one. Although I saw that in baseball. The Jays did that with baseball this year, and that's not a good idea.
Didn't work.
No.
Okay. Anyways, free agents.
Luke Glendening. Do you have anything else to say about him?
No, I'm just going to miss him in Detroit. The only reason we're talking about it is because I'm a Red Wings fan. He wouldn't come up in a regular podcast.
I was going to say, we now have about 10 minutes left to go through the other 100 signings. Here we go.
Mike Hoffman in Montreal.
I like that deal for Montreal.
Really?
It didn't fit there. That wasn't the need they needed to fill. Right? They lost Philip Deneau and replaced him with Mike Hoffman, but the dollar amount and the term is fine for Hoffman.
I just remember Hoffman was like the trade deadline guy a few years ago, and he's never lived up to that hype. So every time I see $4.5 million for 3 years, it's not awful. Mike Hoffman's not exciting to me.
I think he can be good for that team. They do not have like a real offensive spark plug though. And they get that in Hoffman.
Yeah, I suppose so. If he can play that role, then that's great. I don't think he's more than that though.
Because last year, let me do some quick math right here. Last year in 52 games, he had 17 goals, which is a 26 goal pace on an 82 game season.
Wow, that's actually not bad. And last year was his 1 year deal with St. Louis, right?
Right. Year before that, 29. Year before that, 36. Both of those with the Panthers.
So that's better than I thought.
4.5 years or $4.5 million for a 25 goal scorer. Sign me up.
Assuming he scores that many goals on this team.
Yep. Well, you put in with Nick Suzuki. Now I'm excited. Now that's something that I actually want to tune in to watch the Canadiens, or with Kokniemi or whoever.
They do have their exciting young guys, but Mike Hoffman to me is just not that exciting.
You don't have to be excited about Mike Hoffman.
I'm not going to be excited about anything for the Montreal Canadiens this week. I'm sorry, Carl.
That's fair. You know what? I have regret saying good things too. Now that you reminded me, what have I done? Well, good news then. They did lose Philip Deneau. He went off to the LA Kings, which is why I don't get why the Canadiens did not go out and try to sign one of the very few centers that were available. They spent their money on a winger, which they have. They do not have center depth. Philip Deneau, one of their few pieces, gone.
Especially considering how important Deneau was to their run this year. Like, it was no secret they needed him to get as far as they did.
Yeah,
and then they let him go, and then just decided not to backfill.
They're like, you know what, David Krejci's not an exciting piece, but he's sitting out there on free agency. I would have rather that for this team than Mike Hoffman.
I don't know. Here after like trashing Mike Hoffman, I'm like, nah, give me Hoffman over Krejci.
But I Danault 6 years, 5.5 for the Kings.
It's long term, don't you think?
He earned that in the playoffs. And I do not like paying someone for what they show in one playoff round.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't think the cap hit's that big of a deal in this case. I don't know. This deal, to me, we never really did our love it, hate it thing. It just falls in the middle for me. I'm just like, meh. I don't love the term. I don't think the cap hit's that bad. So I guess I just fall in the middle.
Well, and for this Kings team, they are so young and have so many cheap deals right now. It's fine for them to have a deal like this. And it's not going to cripple them. And by the 6th year, it'll probably still hold up. This is the kind of guy that I would expect him to age well. Not that I think he's particularly great right now, but as he ages, I would expect him to do that well. So
yeah. And somebody did point out on Twitter, I wish I remembered who, so I can give them credit. But, come year 3 of this deal, you got Kopitar, you got Byfield, and then you got Danault. And that's not a bad 1, 2, 3 down the middle.
And you don't have Dustin Brown.
And you don't have Dustin Brown at that point.
So you got that going for you.
So it's actually not that bad, come year 3.
No, it's not. One big one that we have not talked about. We talked about this team, but we did not talk about this deal. Brayden Point was not a free agent this year, but they took care of him prematurely, signing him to a big extension, 8 years, $9.5 million, matching the deal that they handed Nikita Kucherov last year.
Great deal for Brayden Point. Don't you think?
For sure.
$9.5 million? Like, what are some comparables to that deal right now?
I mean, Nikita Kucherov.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good point. You did literally just say that.
I did mention it mere seconds beforehand. But like when we look at any of the big guys that are signed, and he can play center, which is a difference than a lot of these big name wingers. Because I look at the deal that, and I'm quickly trying to pull up the full list of guys signed. But I look at Mitch Marner last year, right? He got less money than Marner did, and I'd rather him.
Yeah, that's the one that was top of my mind. Even Jack Eichel's at $10 million, so pretty close to Jack Eichel.
And who would you rather, Eichel or Point?
I don't know. Probably Point, but that's because I've watched so much more of him, and he's won 2 Stanley Cups over the last 2 years.
I was going to say, we've seen him win. What about similar cap hit, or I guess less? Austin Matthews, $2 million more than Brayden Point. Who would you rather?
I'm taking Matthews. I think Matthews is a better player.
Do you think he's $2 million better?
Yeah. I think Matthews is the one guy you do pay on that Maple Leafs team.
So of this list, and obviously Connor McDavid's at the top. So of centers, Brayden Point on value per deal of guys who earn it, probably third behind Matthews and McDavid.
Yeah, I would think so.
That sounds fair to me.
Yeah, right. That feels right. All right, what else we got?
There's so many more deals. Let's just do one more because someone leaving Tampa. Blake Coleman went to the Calgary Flames today, a team that lost their captain and in need of some leadership. Blake Coleman to the Calgary Flames on a 6-year deal, making 4.9. I like Blake Coleman as a player, as a good role player guy. Him on that Gord and Goodrow line. It's nice that he gets to go from having Goodrow to Goudreau. He won't get that confused. I like him as a player, but I don't like that contract.
I don't hate the cap hit. I mean, you get him for under $5 million, which is like the high end of the range for a player of that caliber. But I don't think it's outside of the range. It's just long, man. Like these are long deals for players that are almost 30.
Which I think is what you got today, because cap hits had to be low because they did have the flat cap. And that seems like the natural outcome of this is that you are going to have longer deals so that guys are still happy.
I guess so. It's just like this kind of player I don't think ages very well. And, Blake Coleman at 35, is this going to be a situation where we're making fun of the Flames because he's going to be on the LTIR? And they're just going to be burying the cap hit?
Yeah, it will be. I mean, maybe he will. I could see him still finishing that deal and being good enough there. And if he is on it, then we'll join everyone else who signed contracts today and make fun of them. So I think that's it. I think we're out of time for today, which is impressive. There are only 2 names that we planned to talk about today that we did not get to.
Is one Landeskog?
No, we talked about him.
Okay, good.
And I'm fine. Do you want to take a guess at who those 2 are?
I think I got them. Give me your quick love it, hate it. Bushnevich in St. Louis.
Okay with it? I don't love it, don't hate it.
Foligno to Boston.
Love it.
Hate it. Hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it. You know what? I don't even know what the term or length of this contract is because I literally just saw it before we came on. I hate that Nick Foligno, this player that I love, is going to this team that I hate.
Well, I mean, he got paid. So at least you can take solace in the fact that he is getting money from the Boston Bruins. 2 years, 3.8. That's
good for him. That's really good for him. That's probably why he didn't go to Minnesota and play with his brother.
Right, because no one except for Boston was giving him 3.8.
Yeah, so good for him. It's going to be not cool seeing him in a Bruins jersey.
I'm also not sure. Boston has some maneuvering to do because they currently don't have. I'm not sure if I'm missing something, that there is someone who's going on long-term IR to make cap space, but they need to sign Tuukka Rask still. He has not signed. Very likely that he might not be with this team next year, which is probably for him not that terrible of a situation.
And they have just over $1 million in cap space.
Yeah.
But they're going to need to do something, whether it's Rask or someone else.
Yeah. Because the guys that they brought up throughout the year, like Swayman wasn't it. I don't think we saw any of the other guys on their roster in there. So it's literally just Linus Ullmark that they signed today, which
yikes.
That's not it either.
No, it is not.
Well, that brings us to the end of our show. Thank you for joining us on this jam-packed free agency special. We'll try to get back into a more regular rhythm as we get into the summer, instead of just like dropping one on draft night and dropping one on free agency day. We're now into, next week's show, we'll have a bunch of news as well. And then we'll be into the slowness of the summer. Luckily, it's only a short summer, so we'll be back before you know it.
Absolutely. It is a short off season because we're getting started up in October again.
So thank you for tuning in. You can head on over to thefourthlinepodcast.com for more about the show. You can find where we are. We're on everywhere you listen to podcasts. And if you want to get a hold of us, you can over there. You can find us on Twitter at Fourth Line Podcast or mail at thefourthlinepodcast.com if you're looking for the show. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Nick, for joining in on this free agency day. It's a lot going on, and it was fun.
It's always a lot of fun. And whenever you're ready, I got my rhyme.
Make it happen.
It's time for us to wrap up another Fourth Line show. I know what you're thinking. You don't want us to go. Draft free agents and trades are really sick. And don't forget you want Steve Yzerman over Joe Sakic. like the song, Carl?
I need a new host.
He needs a new host.